Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Tech for Success Essential Guidance for SMEs webinar series. This is our first session. We're absolutely delighted that you're here with us. My name is Siobhan Lavelle, and I am a Reputation Management and Crisis Communications Specialist. I'm going to be moderator for today, and what that means is I'm going to guide us through today's session. I'm going to introduce our speakers. So we're shortly going to be joined by Dan Pritchard, who is Managing Director of Astley Media. Dan is going to talk to us about communications and marketing in this new normal that we find ourselves in. So he's going to share insights into how we tackle this essential business function during such challenging times. Before we dive into details, we have a few house rules. So you notice that everyone is on mute today. This is to make sure that everyone can hear our speakers clearly. That said, we do really want you to ask questions and share your thoughts on today's topics. So please use the Q&A feature. I'm sure everybody's familiar with the Zoom functions right now, but if you find the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see the Q&A button. Please use that to ask your questions, and I will put the questions to your speakers on your behalf. If you do need clarification on any points that are made by our speakers as we go through, then please also raise those in the Q&A, and then I'll ask our speakers to take a moment to explain their point in more detail before continuing. If you have broader questions about the topics under discussion, post your question at any time. I will then use these as part of our Q&A session towards the end of today's webinar. We'll ask as many questions as possible with a view to finishing at 9:15. You can also use the chat function if you want to share your thoughts on the conversation, and we will be sharing a recording of today's webinar on YouTube along with a summary of questions and key points. So please look out for links to that after today's session, which will come to you through email. One last point here, if you're using Twitter today, please use the event hashtag that you see on your screen right now. Thank you. So that's the rules all laid out. We'll move on. Before I introduce today's guest expert, I'd like to introduce Julian Wills. So Julian is Managing Director of TimeWade, and he is founder of Technology for Success. Hello, Julian, and welcome to today's webinar.
Morning, Siobhan. Morning, everyone.
Good morning. So Julian, tell me, what is Technology for Success, and what's the plan for this specific webinar series?
Yeah, so thanks. So we originally set up the Technology for Success business group for businesses throughout the Southwest to really help them understand how they use technology and how they can make better use of technology. We get together prior to this anyway, at least once a month at the Exeter Science Park, and we share ideas. We listen to how businesses are using technology and how we can maintain a more strategic approach to adopting the right technologies at the right time to help businesses thrive. We also produced the 2020 Beyond Tech survey last year, where we were looking at how businesses are currently using technology now and how they think they'll be using them in the future. And I think one interesting sort of fact that came out of that, which is pertinent to I think where we are now, is that we found that only 53% of businesses felt that they had a well-prepared IT strategy. I think something that, given the current situation, more businesses might be thinking perhaps we could have spent a bit more time looking at. But moving on to today, clearly we've moved into such an unprecedented time. You know, I think even the businesses with the best technology strategies, you know, will be struggling. So we thought it'd be useful to expand the program we've built upon, open up the conversation to topics that are relevant to the current situation, and offer some practical guidance that we can all use right now.
It's certainly very, very timely, and it's great that that you've been able to open this up to so many people through the webinar. So you're actively supporting SMEs right now with their IT and their tech. How do you think businesses are coping?
Well, I think it's really tough out there. Lots of businesses are, from what we're seeing, are really just concentrating on essential only work. A lot, obviously, huge amounts of businesses have had to adopt how they work. You know, a lot of businesses are now using technologies and systems that perhaps they didn't even know existed 3 weeks ago. So it is tough, but I think also what we're also seeing is this is actually, in terms of making positives out of this, businesses are also looking at this as an opportunity to pause, take stock, see what they're doing, spend some time looking at their own processes and systems with a view of kind of coming out of this stronger than they came into it.
Yeah, it's certainly very interesting times, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this evolves for so many businesses, and what the new normal becomes. Thank you, Julian. So TimeWade is one of the companies lined up for a future webinar, but right now I would like to introduce Dan Pritchard. So Dan, as you know, is Managing Director of Astley Media. You can see his photograph on your screen there as one of the experts talking through this seminar.
Morning, Siobhan. Morning.
Dan. So Dan, you're going to talk to us about communications and marketing in the new normal we now find ourselves in. So over to you.
Thanks, and hi everyone, and yeah, big virtual hug from me to everyone who's joined. I'm in the lovely position I can see all the names of people popping in, so it's fantastic that people are sitting there either in their pajamas, in their suited and booted, having their breakfast or otherwise, or 100% attention. It's wonderful. So do use the chat function in terms of popping questions. Elle is doing some technical support, Elle and the Astley Media team, in terms of keeping an eye on things like that, and Siobhan is too. We'll try a couple of polls as well, and just see how that goes in terms of, I guess, testing the temperature and trying to make this as interactive as possible. But yeah, I'll dive straight in. So I think communications and marketing in the new normal, there's three things I'm going to cover. So firstly, where are we at? Where are we at right now? Where are we heading? The big question. And what are you going to do? Most importantly, what are you going to do right now as a brand? So in terms of where we're at, I don't need to go into detail there. We know it's unprecedented. I've been involved in a lot of crisis management over the years in government, the nuclear industry, and as an agency working with clients, but no one could have been fully prepared for this. We're all in that same boat together. So I think where we are, we know it's tough. We know in some sectors that they're being devastated right now, so that makes it incredibly challenging. And it means, of course, there's no one uniform response to this, because different businesses are feeling it in different ways. Looking at it, I think businesses seem to be falling into four categories. There are some that are busier with new opportunities, and whether that's food, healthcare, supplies, that kind of thing. Certain strands of tech are busier. Some are just busier because of the situation. Actually, it's all hands to the pump, and that means you're having to work harder, work faster in a strange new environment called home working for a lot of people. But the outputs in terms of the income's being generated might not be much different, or might be down a bit, but actually having to work busier in this time. For others, it's variable in terms of the scale of the impact, or variable in terms of there could be different phases to this. And for others, there is significant decline right through to having to stop right now. And so it is difficult, and I totally accept that there are different companies in different situations right now, locally across the region and beyond. I'm going to try and get this poll up and running. So it should pop up in your poll, a little button. So this is really just to sort of see how people kind of feeling. What is your position? It's anonymous. I've just clicked on the launch, so that might pop up, and then we'll come back to that in terms of as people vote, and I'll share with you the answer. And I think that would just be interesting just to see, give us a bit of an idea in terms of where people are right now. So I can see some votes starting to come in, which is great. I'll keep talking and then we'll come back to that. This, I think, is a really interesting set of data. So this is global SEO searches. It was published about 3 or 4 days ago and covered a 1 week. And you can see just how huge drop-off is in terms of certain sectors. Some have gone up: finance, food, healthcare, media. Others, travel, transportation, even technology, etc., has gone down. So this is having a big impact. And across the board. A few areas are busy, but vast majority of us are not, in terms of the impact and the scale and the less spend out there.
Dan, can I just interrupt you there?
Yeah.
We're having a message that not everybody has seen the poll.
I can
so
see that we're getting. I think we'll have to move on because it's saying it's launched, and my only option on the button is to click end poll. So I'm not sure how that's going to work. But although some people have voted, and the people who have voted, it's coming up as significant decline.
Okay.
Significant decline and busier because of the situation. They're the two. So some people are seeming to be able to vote in that poll, others aren't.
Apologies if you haven't been able to vote, but just let's carry on, Dan. Back to your presentation.
Yeah. So I mean, okay. So it's a snapshot of the snapshot, but the only two categories that are coming up at the moment are significant decline or busier because of the situation. Okay. So that's and that just goes to show, doesn't it, in terms of how huge the impact this is. So what you're seeing right now is a map of the UK, and that is not coronavirus. That is an image of positivity. Actually, that is mutual aid groups. If you go onto the mutual aid website, that is existing, and new groups that are being set up have been set up in the last few days, last couple of weeks. In terms of helping each other. And I think that is the point, that really underlines the point, I think, of the message I'm kind of trying to get across today. We are seeing, in amongst all the gloom, some incredible positivity, some coming together of communities, businesses, individuals, helping each other, because right now, that's one of the few things that people can do. And I think brands absolutely have a role to play with that. And actually, that could be one of the things that saves some great brands over the coming weeks and months. Now, the Edelman Trust Barometer is something that runs all the time, just measuring the public's perception and trust of brands. And they've been doing snap polls globally, country by country, throughout this process. And I think this is interesting. Consumers have warned brands that their actions during the coronavirus pandemic will have an impact on future purchasing behaviour, according to a special edition of the Edelman Trust Barometer. So, brands matter to people. People care about brands, and people want brands to behave responsibly. If they don't, as we've seen, Sports Direct were shot down for being seen as continuing to send their staff to work, i.e. putting profit before safety, and to the point where the government ordered them to stop trading. They had to get to that point. And it's not just the big brands. I'm sure some of us know of companies, as we started to move to remote working, other people we were aware of who were still going into work and were starting to grumble and starting to be worried. What kind of message does that send out around that brand? So, that it does have an impact. Consumers, whether it's B2C or B2B, expect brands to behave responsibly. And actually more than that, 84% of respondents now expect firms to focus their marketing on how products and services can actually help people cope with pandemic-related life challenges. And the vast majority expect brands to show that they are aware of the crisis and its impact. So that's, I think, something that we all need to think about in terms of our communications and marketing. And then beyond that, 89% brands should actually shift to producing products that help people meet the new challenges presented by the virus, and to offer free or lower price products to health workers or other high-risk individuals. There is an expectation amongst the public that we should be helping. And of course, we are helping. There are amazing stories coming out of companies helping each other, helping the situation. I've got a few examples later on, but that is the new normal. That is what people want out of brands. And I think that comes... that will be B2C and B2B. It will be your customers, it will be your clients, it will be the general public. And it's influencing buyer behaviour. This was about a week ago. Brands' response to pandemic already influencing purchase behaviour. So where the pandemic struck first in China, it's had the biggest impact into the people actually switching to different brands because of the way they've responded, in an innovative or compassionate way. So, and those numbers obviously will go up in the countries as the virus proceeds and it starts to reach peak in other countries. So, it's having, and of course it would, and there's no way that people would be ignore how brands are responding, and looking for the ones that are, understanding and are doing the right thing. So I think the learning point around that, in terms of, sort of this new normal, is in terms of your comms, in terms of your marketing, in terms of your behaviour as a business, on the side of humanity. Now is not the time to be selling. Now is certainly not the time to be selling in a blatant marketing way. It's just not appropriate. People have got bigger things to worry about right now.
Dan, can I step in with a question there?
Absolutely.
This is a general question on everything you've mentioned so far. How do we manage sensitivities here, and how do we make sure that our own knowledge is adequate to make sure we don't make a mistake in our outputs and actions? And we've also been asked a question about how do we make sure that what we're doing, we can talk about what we're doing without it sounding like we're trying to take advantage of the situation. I think all those points are connected. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I think that second one, there is like an invisible line that you can't cross and you mustn't cross. And if you're a good-natured person, you won't want to cross, of course. But sometimes it's really tricky. In PR, I've always used the phrase common sense check. What would someone sitting at home think about that? What would your parent, your mum or your dad think about that? At the moment, your audience is completely changed. It's so hard to know what a personal experience one person is going through, because each of us is connected, networked up, personally, business, friends, family, concern, anxiety for yourself or for others, for children. So your audience is sort of up in the air in that sense. And I think that means, in terms of communications, you have to tread so carefully, and if in doubt, don't push anything out. I know at the moment we're seeing lots of activity content. LinkedIn is awash with things and people trying to be positive, which is fantastic, but don't rush in. This is going to be for the long haul. So don't just jump in there feeling like you have to do something because everyone else is not. We're just seeing the tip of an iceberg around that. So I think it's about common sense and getting opinions from different people in terms of how would someone perceive that now, and how someone look back on that. Is that the right thing to do? And Siobhan, could you just remind me the first question again about in terms of sort of adequate comms?
So that's more about managing sensitivities, and how do we make sure our own knowledge is adequate to make sure we don't make a mistake, basically, in what we're doing and how we're responding.
Well, I mean, it's about having good comms people, isn't it? And who've experienced things and can sort of take the sort of the how society's feeling right now, how your customers are feeling. And one of the things, there's a slide coming up in a minute, is if you're not sure, ask people. If you're not sure how your customers are feeling, ask them. If you're not sure what you should be doing, in terms of if stage one was just switch to a new way of working and try and hang on in there and stabilize, if you can do that, and then you can start to think, okay, what needs to happen now? How do I protect my pipeline? How do I make sure that the loyal clients are staying loyal and are sort of locked into my service and my products? Ask people. I think that's the best thing you can do, because if you've got those trusted relationships, then that's okay. People don't mind that. So I think that's what I'd say on that point.
Thank you. That critical friend is very important.
Absolutely. So that's where we are. Where are we heading? I've only got one slide on this because it's a huge question mark, and there's people on the call right now, Phil, Samson Hall, and others who are experts in strategy, business strategy, and they'll know this better than me. We know it's going to get worse, but we also know it's going to get better, and that's about it. In terms of the timings and how it's going to work in terms of the economy and businesses, that upturn, when is it going to come? How staggered? How quick? How slow? There's all sorts of questions around that. So I think, the only thing I can say around that is, in terms of your business strategy and therefore your communication strategy, the marketing, your communications with your customers, your staff, you've got to be flexible. You've got to keep revisiting it over and over again at this stage if you can, because what is the situation this week can be very different to the situation next week and beyond. So that makes it a challenge. Most importantly, I think this focuses on what you're going to do. And again, I sort of make the point that we're in different situations. We are feeling this in different ways. Some sectors are, really devastated right now and are just furloughing and just having to shut down, and there's not much they can do as a brand. And I totally get that. Others have more capacity, others are busy, others it's variable. And I think this part of the presentation, think of it in terms of your brand, your business, and the capacity within that to do things, and you as a leader, you as a personal business leader as well. Because of course, if you're, there are some people who are very busy, just holding the fort and keeping things going. There are others who, because of their work, it's dried up. So, but as a person, as an individual, there are still things that we can try and do and stay positive and focus on. I think it comes into three groups in terms of thinking about the three audiences, in terms of you've got choices about who you engage with and how you engage. So your people, and I mean your employees, and connected to them, their families right now, because that's their number one priority. Your customers, of course. And I think actually the third one is anyone else who needs help right now. And that's a long list of people we'll come on to in a bit. So I think for all of this, think about those audiences in terms of what you can do for your people, and you all have been doing things already to support, to reassure, to set up new communication channels, to try and help and explain, how the business is responding, what you're going to do, how you're trying to protect people, and there's going to be some, bad news that people have already had to tell people, but that's really important. Your customers, in terms of your current customers and potential new customers as well, and anyone else who needs help, they're all really important. The three kind of key audiences. So right now, I think you need to forget about building your business. I think you need to forget about enhancing your reputation. And I think you need to think about doing things for others as a brand. That's what consumers want. That's what your customers and clients are expecting. And actually, in terms of being seen to do the right thing and actually doing the right thing for the right reason, that is, this is the time when your true brand values are going to be tested, more than any other time in your life. I think I mentioned this earlier, but don't feel inclined to rush out there, because although there is a lot of noise now, and who didn't get a little bit fed up with all the emails coming out from all these brands saying, we're here for you, we understand these incredible times. The one thing that taught me is, crikey, I've signed up to too many things. Too many brands have got my email address. I was suddenly getting nice reassuring emails from Next. It's like, well, that's great, but you're not, I don't need to talk to you right now. You're not going to help me with my position where I am. So don't rush out there. The life cycle of a pandemic, looking at what the scientists, the experts are saying, there is a life cycle around this, and we're in it for the long haul. So think about the when as well as the how. Yes, some people, it's right that they should be out there offering support, guidance, engaging in this initial response period, but there's other phases to this. So don't feel just because look at what's happening in webinar programs, suddenly webinar programs are popping up, and that's right for some brands, but that's not for everyone. So think about when is the timing, and don't feel pressured into sort of jumping into this big swirl of activity that you can see right now, because we can only see the activity that the things that are happening. There's plenty of people who just haven't got time for this right now, are heads down trying to fight to save their business and doing other things, or just staying silent because that's the right thing to do. So I think with those three audiences, what do you need? Speak to people, ask them, ask your people, ask your customers, think about anyone else who you can help right now. If you're not sure as a brand how you could be engaging, ask people. People don't mind asking if you're asking for the right reasons. So I think that's an important point. For me, there seems to be three ways that businesses can, I guess, adapt to the new normal. One is around redesign, into redesigning your services. One is around going digital, and I mean going digital like you've never done before. So I'll show you an example of what I mean around that. And the third area is just help people or distract people, a bit of fun. That's important as well. So we'll go through each of those three one at a time with some thoughts on that. So redesigning services, going digital because that digital platform is a way of reaching, it's a way of selling, it's a way of building your brand, it's a way of connecting and supporting others, and the help or distract. So I think in terms of redesign in the services, to enable communications and marketing to happen in the right way, in the right sort of frame of mind in these difficult times, think about your service offering. Think about all of it, what are the elements that could carry on? What are the elements that could be adapted? In terms of, could you focus on one particular area right now if you're closing down other areas in terms of guidance, advice, the digital aspects of that? Who's it for? That audience might not be there anymore. So does there need to be some serious thinking about that? There are some audiences that are still there. The public sector is still there. Schools, education. There are new audiences that have popped up. The parents struggling to work at home and teach their children at the same time. That is a new audience of millions of people. What is the way you can support and engage with them in the right way? How's it accessed? If your business was built around people walking through the front door, that's really difficult right now. So how is your offering accessed, and what can you do to change that right now? And how do I pay for it? People are not wanting to spend a lot of money at the moment, businesses and consumers. So how flexible? What are the options around that? So I think that's 4 ways of thinking about redesigning services. And I've got a list, just some little kind of thoughts really, and these are not like eureka brilliant moments, but they're just taking that on and just thinking a little bit around partnerships. Is now the time to partner up? We've got a lot of recruitment companies locally who will be furloughing their staff, and everything's gone quiet, and they'll have to be battening down the hatches and hoping they can hang on and come out the other end. We've got a lot of HR companies out there who are super busy at the moment because people are needing support and advice and guidance around things. And one thing that underpins both those types of companies, they're experts in people. So how can something new emerge out of this, a new type of business model, a new type of service that could be created? Can companies start teaming up at this point to help each other get through this, because that's what we're going to need. Selling super low cost online, people have been doing it for years now, but is there an aspect of your service that could do that? Thinking about the schools, thinking about children, thinking about your expertise. What can you create? Is there a free part of that? Is there a paid part of that? Flexing and changing to the audience you're serving. And if you have spare capacity in your business, what can you do with that at the moment? Food parcels to volunteers, vulnerable people, etc., etc. So agile thinking around this is required. Pivoting to busy areas. The legal firm that starts creating learning packs for the children of clients, just to retain that loyalty. Discounts for the digital version of something that was non-digital. Just giving extra for your clients right now because they need it, because they're really up against it. Have you the capacity to do that? Some businesses are not going to have that, but others you might, because some areas have suddenly gone quiet. So that's about redesign. Go digital. What I mean around that is review everything. Some people have been quick to the digital kind of world. Others have been slower, and now is the time you've got to review everything in terms of what is the digital equivalent of that, what is the digital equivalent of that, and see if you can create that and take those steps. And just by reviewing everything and asking what is the digital version of that, new things might emerge, new opportunities, new ideas. So now is the time to do that. And if you're going to do that, make sure your SEO, social media, your presence is good, because otherwise people are not going to find you. So I think that go digital is difficult for some sectors, but I think challenge everyone just to work through that process. Here's an example of what I mean by going digital to the nth degree. So 10,000 restaurants close, 1,000 set up home delivery, fantastic. 100 launch online cooking lessons for children, brilliant. 10 of those partner up with a translation school, so you can pizza, pasta, and Italian at the same time, and it's £5 for a month's license, and away you go. But you keep going on the digital front. So 5 of those combine the cooking with grandparents and children, so your grandparents can watch and be involved and give tips. Digital allows all these things to happen. 3 launch guest viewer slots, so it's not just the person running the restaurant, the chef doing it. We start getting the viewers involved. And one really savvy one develops a whole method of payment methods in terms of gifts, discounts, paying later, donations, etc., etc. That's what I mean by going digital. Just keep asking the question: how digital can I take this? The generation of YouTubers and others. We've got a lot to learn from them in terms of how they are running pure digital businesses and are probably doing all right right now. So again, it's not appropriate in all areas, but look at your business, think about that digital approach.
Dan,
then, yes,
before you move on from that slide,
absolutely.
So personally, I think it's remarkable. Who would have thought that in the current climate that restaurants can create a digital way to keep their businesses alive for the future? I think we probably all agree that's quite remarkable. But to do that takes a huge amount of creativity. So where do you start if you can't currently see how to do it, or you just don't feel that spark of creativity for your business? Where do you start to think in that way for how you might future-proof your business now?
Yeah, I think, well, creativity, one of the things about creativity is you can't usually do it alone. So you need to gather some people, whether it's within your business or your children, and mull it over, in terms of look at what other people are doing, look at other people, how other people are responding. What we're going through is not unique in terms of our part of the business community. It's happening everywhere. So look around, be brave, ask people, connect with different organizations, because if someone's from the outside of your business, stepping in and giving a perspective can be really helpful. And you can't use the excuse of saying, "Oh, I'm no good at digital." You just can't, because we're this is part of technology success, part of the Time Wade program. Tech underpins everything, and we're seeing that. And the world that comes out, the business community that comes out the other side of this is going to be changed. So I think as a business, you've got no choice right now, other to think about and adopt, and the creativity bit is really hard, but you just have to have, you have to think, and you have to look at examples, you have to look back in history, you have to look at the great brands like Apple in terms of how they kind of deal with things, and you have to look locally and talk to people, so there's no easy answer to creativity and where the ideas come from, and again, different businesses and different sectors are feeling it differently, but that is, and there's people who can speak more detail than me in terms of that creative spark bit, but it is about being brave and challenging and trying things at the moment. What's the worst that can happen right now if you launch a digital version of 10% of your business? The worst thing that can happen is that no one finds it, or it doesn't work, but you learn from it, and then you go on and you create the next one. It's the ones that we see that work are often the result of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 attempts that don't work. So yeah, I think that's the approach.
Thank you. Just as a quick reminder to everybody, we've got 5 minutes more or so of Dan's presentation, then we will be having questions. So please don't forget to use the Q&A box to ask your questions.
And that's a reminder as well for me to crack on.
Very subtle though, I thought.
So help me or distract me. This is something we are all able to do. Even those who don't feel in the mood right now, there might come a time. So what can you do as a brand to actually help others? There's a huge list there of different people who are in different situations, and it probably covers most of the population right now. So there are some wonderful examples out there. I'll rattle through a few of the local ones and a couple of national ones now, just to show you. And we need a bit of positivity. So, like many others, Extra Gin, they're making hand sanitizer. Fantastic for frontline staff. Applegate, they've launched a cow cam. So they moved to remote working. Applegate are based in North Devon, an online procurement platform, doing a lot around PPE right now, which is fantastic. But thinking about their staff, they have set up a cow cam. So you're sitting at home. It's very Devon-ness, isn't it? You must imagine right now you're sitting at home, wherever you might be, you get the sound of cows, so you can crack on with your work while listening to the live mewing from the cow shed somewhere in North Devon. Okay, starting to personalise things, personalise your services. So this is Reebok, but it could easily be the local gym, the local personal trainer. Tell us what kit you've got at home, from I've got nothing, apart from a flight of stairs, through to something a bit more advanced, and they'll customise workouts for you. Different organisations, associations we're being involved, we're all members of. This is something I got sent through in terms of I've been invited to my first virtual yoga for PR and comms professionals. Like, yeah, I'm tempted to join. A bit frightened by it, but I'll probably get involved and meet some new people. So there are things that people are doing to help and distract. Fab Lab, the Devon libraries, they're making face masks. And that's volunteers around the edges of just hanging on in there and trying to survive right now, and they're doing some good, so they can do that. Brands can do that. Here's another one. This is also from Applegate. They're just creating little activities for kids, and putting it out there in terms of designing mascots and other things. Fantastic. It's just here's some helpful stuff that we're doing to help you right now, and that's a company that's flat out 7 days a week at the moment. Reform down in Torbay, they just CIC, they just switched 100% just to getting food to people. Just get food to people who need it. That's all they're doing right now. This is a company, Exclusive Memorabilia. They're a company, don't know much about them. Just gift bags, treat bags, children of key workers, NHS staff, that kind of thing. So there are things that people are doing, and that's fantastic. So just redesign, go digital, help me or distract me. We'll skip over the poll because I don't think the last poll was very effective. But yeah, I think the learning points focus on those aspects in terms of redesigning your services, thinking about going digital, and the help me or distract me aspect. I think underpinning it all, be helpful, relevant, informative, constructively distracting, or authentically compassionate. That's quite a long sentence, but I think the true nature of what of your comms right now really, really matters. So thank you for that. I hope it was a bit of a whistle stop rush through. I hope you found it useful. Siobhan, happy to take questions from you or others. I've tried to avoid looking at the chat because I can't do two things at once, obviously, as a guy sitting at home right now. But
well, I'm glad you said that, not me. But don't worry, I've got that bit. So thank you, Dan. That was really, really interesting. We have had some questions come in. So I'm going to start off. We've had a question again that relates to the point earlier about how talking and shouting about what you do is about helping in the crisis, and people don't see that you're taking advantage of the crisis. So again, I think that comes to the point that we were talking about earlier. How do you make sure people see that what you're doing is genuine rather than taking advantage?
First is it genuine? Are you helping? If you're just thinking about selling, then you're not helping. Unless that sale is a direct positive impact right now. And you could say, well, it's helping the bottom line of my business, but that's not enough at the moment. People, it's really difficult. So I think the first question to ask is, what can I do to make a difference right now? And if you put that at the heart of your brand at the moment, all the other things then become a little bit easier.
Yeah. Thank you. Another question's come in, which I think is a really good example of the specific challenges that individual companies are facing, and also of that willingness to help. So Kerry Hutchinson has posted a question, and Kerry has a professional broadcast recording studio in Devon and does corporate voiceovers. And Kerry wants to know how she can help remotely as communications grows in importance now. So, how can businesses like Kerry's get involved in the bigger picture here?
So, Kerry, you need to reach out and engage, which is difficult right now when lots of people are doing it. You just need to find perhaps that one local organisation and start telling their story and show and to demonstrate your skills. So that one I mentioned, Reform in Torbay. Okay, so they are delivering, was it 800 food parcels a week? And they've probably got no time to tell their story right now. So tell their story, do some good, help them, and through that, your message will start to spread, and people who don't know about your service might start to find your service. Partnerships. Astley Media, we've since the very beginning, 7 years ago, we've just forged partnerships. Just keep forging. Fast Track to Growth, the business program, Tech Southwest, Stephen Scone, Sampson Hall, NatWest. So many companies we've partnered up with in different ways because pooling resources, helping each other, and connecting with people in different ways is a fantastic thing to do. You can't just sit there and advertise. Advertising doesn't work. It's true engagement. Two-way engagement is what you need. So go and find the people who you can help, start helping them, and through that, you're doing some good, and hopefully some good things will come out of it for your business and brand.
And my apologies, Kerry's just confirmed that Kerry is in fact a he. I referred to Kerry as a she.
And Kerry's a very good professional voice broadcaster as well. I think we've used his services before. So top recommendation.
Great, thank you. So a more specific question then, Dan, you used a heat map earlier in your presentation that I think people have found quite interesting. So could you share the website for where you found that heat map, or can you do that?
It's just mutual aid. It's a .org one. I think if you just Google, I dread to go and find it now, because if I find it now, the screen that is looking okay at the moment might collapse. And but I will as soon as the presentation ends, I'll try and pop it onto the chat. But if not, we'll put it in the email that goes around to everyone as well in terms of the other webinars and coming up. But mutualaid.org.uk, I do believe. And obviously it keeps growing. But what a credible kind of sign of positivity, because that's one thing that is happening, isn't it? We are connecting to new people in new ways, whether as businesses, as individuals. And who knew how much kind of love was out there in terms of whether it's your local village or local street, businesses helping each other. There's some incredible stories coming out, and I think that map just kind of summed it up really, in terms of, wow, we are really coming together.
So, Dan, I've just got one question for you, with a brief answer required, if that's okay, before we move on to our conclusion. How will we know when it's time to move on from the crisis phase that we're in now, to get back on track with our more usual and proactive approaches to our communications and marketing?
I don't know. I think it's really hard. How we know, I think as humans, as people, will know. There's obviously there's the messages, the instructions from the government, and their kind of communication strategy around that. And my sense is it's going to get worse before it gets better. And the health situation drives everything else, and we fall into line with that. But I think two things. One is we might not be able to predict, and we might not be able to when it's going to happen, the timescale. But in terms of the knowing, the people around us, the messages from government, your clients, your people, your customers, picking up that sense. But actually, what's more important is planning for it now, if you can. We're all kind of doing the day to day, and a lot of us are flat out with that. Others are very quiet. Start planning. If you can find the headspace, or find a strategic part of your business to sort of plan ahead. That's the most important thing right now, because it's going to happen. It will come, and we don't know how strong it's going to be, but it's definitely going to occur. So start planning now in terms of, okay, how would I take advantage of that? What would I do? What would be the messaging be? How would I build on some of the good things as well as reflect on some of the bad things that are happening right now to move the business forward?
Great. Thank you, Dan. So just a couple of comments before we conclude today. Dan, Kerry has asked if you could contact him with the name of the local organisation that you mentioned that you could possibly help with. So if you could perhaps do that after the call, I think Kerry would appreciate that. And someone else has suggested that you can actually use Google to create your own heat map free. So obviously that's a tech skill that person's keen to share. So thank you very much for that. Okay, Dan, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for a great session today. Dan and Julie in particular for sharing your perspectives, which have been really useful. So our session next week is going to take place on Thursday, because we do have bank holidays coming up. So Thursday, the 9th of April, and Vikram Kamerkar will be talking about teamwork and collaboration. So we are all fully immersed in self-isolation these days, and one of the new challenges we're facing is how we bridge the gap between what we were used to in an office environment and this new normal that we find ourselves within. So Vikram and Roy McFarlane will be hosting next week's webinar to help us through this change. I'd also like to share details with you of our future topics, which you can see on screen any minute now. You'll notice that these slides do have links to book places on webinars. These links will be made available to you through email, so please do make a note and book yourself on our future sessions. Anyone who wants to carry on the conversation around today's comms and marketing theme, you can head over right now to the Tech for Success LinkedIn group. Dan is going to be carrying on the discussion there for everyone who wants to dive into this a little deeper. You will be receiving a thank you email after this session, which will include the links to the future webinars, and it will also include the recording that we mentioned of this webinar, which is going to be on YouTube. We would really like to hear your thoughts on future topics. So when you get that email, please, that will include a way to suggest topics. Please do take a moment to respond, because that's going to make sure that we can bring the experts that you need together for these sessions in the future. Now, we did have a plan to launch a poll to get your immediate feedback on this webinar. I think given our technology challenges, unless somebody steps in to correct me, I have a feeling that might not be going ahead. Dan, are we going to do that poll? Okay, I'm going to take that as a no to the poll. So we will find a way to get your feedback on today's session separately.
Yeah, Siobhan, we'll include that. We'll do like a roundup email that come out on Monday in terms of, here's a link to YouTube. If people have got other ideas, that kind of thing, we're encouraging people to join the LinkedIn group that Julian set up in terms of technology success. There's a great sort of set of companies that are already sort of involved in that project, and how could we have predicted, our world would be turned upside down, but technology underpinning a lot of these things we're thinking about right now as an enabler. But actually the idea of the program is then to sort of think about the tech, but also think about the people challenges right now and all the other aspects of it.
Great, thank you. Okay, so that just leaves me to say thank you so much for joining us today. I think we've had a great deal of value shared with us by Dan and Julian, and I think we're all very grateful to that. Some really positive messages coming through on that. We will look forward to seeing you next Thursday at 8:30 a.m. Good luck, everybody, till then, and stay healthy. Thank you all. Bye-bye.